Hi, I'm Mark Taylor, and it's time again for the Mark Taylor Show. This week, we're on location in beautiful St. George, New Brunswick. This week's guest is former CFLer Wally Balasiuk. Welcome to the show, Wally.
Thanks, Mark.
It's been a while coming. I'm glad we got here and get this going. So,
okay.
Wally, I want to talk about the early years, where you were born, and just talk about your life growing up and how you come to play football. So I did a little bit of research to find out a little bit about you before we come on here.
Okay.
I heard that you came
Hope
from...
it wasn't too deep.
No. Benito, Manitoba. Is that
Benito, Manitoba is where I was born. That's right.
Now, where is Benito in Manitoba?
Okay, it's in northeast of Winnipeg. It's Benito's known as the gateway to the valley, the Red River Valley.
Okay.
So, yes.
And that's where you were born and grew up?
That's where I was born.
And
no, I was a year old when we left there for Ontario.
Okay.
And we moved to Niagara-on-the-Lake in 1940. And we lived in the town proper for 4 years, and then we moved out to a farm that my parents bought.
You moved down to the Niagara area. Your dad was a farmer?
He was a farmer.
Yeah,
he was a farmer in the Ukraine, where he immigrated from.
I guess wanted to know a little bit of where your name came from.
The name actually is Balas.
Okay.
But the western part of the Ukraine was annexed to Poland after the First World War.
Okay.
And so when my folks went to get the papers to come to Canada, my dad looked at the name and he says, "You made a mistake." And they says, "No, you now have a Polish name." They added the IUK. Our name is actually Balas, from Hungarian origin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Ontario, I guess. Were you a big kid growing up?
I was always big,
Because I looked at your stats or your like a little bit about your bio on the CFL site.
Yeah.
6'1", which is by today's standards is not a big kid.
It's small.
but back in those days, I guess, because even when I went to school, I was 6'1", and I was a fairly big kid. But I'm certainly now you and I would be dwarfed, I think.
Exactly. Probably wouldn't be big enough to play.
Exactly. So how many in your family played football, or were you the only one?
I had three brothers, 4 sisters. So there was 8 of us in the family, 4 and 4. Yeah.
Were you older, or where were you in the ladder?
Well, I was right in the middle.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you had brothers and sisters that older than you. Were your brothers play football?
My brother was oldest, and he was born in the Ukraine. He was 2 years old when we came to Canada.
Okay.
Then I had 3 sisters. Then I had a brother, and then myself.
Okay.
And I had another brother, and then finally a sister.
Wow. Did any of them play football besides you?
No. I was the only one to do that.
So what got you interested in football?
I was always involved in sports, any kind of sports. Baseball is actually my love, but I ended up playing football. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, so in 1963, according to my records, you started playing football in Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls, New York.
Niagara Falls, New York?
Yes, so my first experience with football was American football.
Okay, so you had 3 downs, or 4 downs over there.
That's right.
So it's a little bit different. The rules are
and nose to nose, no yard off.
No, right?
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So in 1964, you won the Canadian Senior Championship. And what was that all about? And what age were you at that time?
With East York Argonauts. That was
so
the
you would have been a teenager at that time.
Yeah.
Well, they say senior. It
well, no, I wasn't a teenager. Actually, I was 25 years old when I started playing football.
Oh, is that right?
That's
so
right.
You didn't play any like university or anything like that?
I never finished public school.
Okay.
So I never went to high school or university.
Okay, so you played senior football, and basically that's like a adult men's sort of thing. Okay.
That was a stepping stone.
Yeah. So. How did they ever scout you? How did they ever find out who you were and what your talents were?
No, actually, how I got to Niagara Falls, New York is I went to Hamilton Tiger Cat rookie camp.
Oh, okay.
I did a little bit of lying and manipulating in order to get a tryout.
Oh, okay.
A friend of mine who got a scholarship to the University of North Carolina didn't take the scholarship, but he wanted to try to play football. And
well, you know what they say.
I was training with him.
Okay.
And so he was invited to the camp. So he says, "Why don't you come with me?" We worked out together.
Okay.
And so I went with him. And so when they went to look for my name, and I told him a fellow by the name of Chrysler was a coach for Niagara District High School.
Okay.
And I says, well, he told me to come up here. So the guy looked, your name's not here. And I says, well, I don't know. He told me to come up.
Yeah. Everything's
But
legal as long as you don't get caught.
Listen, I didn't even know how to put a uniform on.
Oh my! and you still you made it.
Well,
to
I went through the 1 week of the rookie camp.
Yep.
And you know, I asked my friend, I said, what position should I play? He says tackle.
Okay.
So that's literally what I did. I tackled guys, and they got
So-
a little
so
peeved
this-
off at me because I was the offensive tackle, and I was tackling guys because that's what he said. You know, I'm play
Right.
tackle, so I'm
Okay.
tackle.
So
Okay.
you basically you learn by the seat of your pants, I guess.
Yeah, but
Or
Ralph's-
baptism by fire, or whatever you want to call it.
Ralph Sazio was the coach then. He was the first year coach. He took over from Trimble.
Okay.
And I mean, he come over to me and he says, "Have you ever played football before?" And I says, "No." And there was a big defensive end, Hardeman Curitan, whose name was, played for Hamilton.
Okay.
And Ralph says to me, he says, "You think you can beat this guy?" And I says, "I don't know, but I'll try if you want." So he said, "That's good enough." So
Wow.
anyway, one of the assistant coaches, Vince Mazza, his
Okay.
cousin was coaching a team over in Niagara Falls, New York. So after we finished camp,
Yep.
he said, you know, get hold, go over and see him. There, you know. So I went over to Niagara Falls, New York, and I played there for the first year. We played 10 games. We traveled all through.
It's not a long ways to travel, but it's
Well, no, for me, it
No.
wasn't that far. But
No.
We traveled to Detroit. We traveled to Hudson's Falls, New York, and we traveled to Pennsylvania, Michigan, different places.
okay.
And I ended up driving the old Volkswagen bus,
Oh.
which the coach owned.
Okay.
I drove that, and so we provided our own transportation and stuff, and so it was kind of we had our gas and meals and stuff paid for. Everything else was,
Wow.
you know, equipment was supplied, but
And you won the Canadian Championship in '64, which
Yeah.
was the
yeah.
wow. That's really something. So in '65, you made the Argos.
65, yes.
So you had to go through another rookie camp. Is that how?
Yes. Well, they got me a job in Toronto, and I was working for Canada Packers.
Okay.
And Gord Ackerman was the defensive line coach at that time, and he came in to work with a contract for me to sign. They had seen my play when I played for East York, and
Yep.
so they come up and signed me to a contract.
Wow.
And, big $5,000 contract.
Holy smokes.
That was big.
I
money.
wasn't going to ask you that, but if you're going to volunteer,
that was big money.
well, certainly it would have been in those days. I don't know what that would translate to today, but probably six figure. It wouldn't be six figure, but it would be a good chunk of change. I mean, you wouldn't have
Probably
starved.
not as much as what they're making today.
Oh, I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so. So Bob Shaw was the coach, I believe, of the Argos, right?
Yes, in '65. But
Yep.
Nobby Rakowski is the one that gave me. See, I belonged to Hamilton territory where I lived, because I played in that area.
Right.
So I was under Hamilton
Oh,
property.
so they have jurisdictions and stuff.
That's right, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so I called Ralph for, about tryout and stuff, and he says, well, he said, tell you the truth, he says, we're really not, our team is set. So, as far as, and I
If
said,
you can
well,
find another job, go get it.
give me a release, and I says, I'll give Toronto a call. So I called Nobby Rakowski. He says, sure, come on down. So
Wow.
Teddy Norris was the scout and administrator for Canadian football
Yep.
players. And so Teddy got the job for me at Canada Packers. I worked at Canada Packers, slugging
Yep. Beef or
beef,
Okay.
loading railway cars, working 12 and 14 hours a day.
Yeah, that put the muscle on you.
That, it did.
Wow. Did you have any aspirations that you were going to make it big? Well, or was it just it just kind of landed
Well,
in your lap?
I mean, I was working hard as I could.
Yep.
I went to the West End YMCA at the time too, and so I worked out there. And
Okay, lifting weights and things like
played
that.
racquetball, handball, and running and so on. They had an indoor track,
Okay.
so yeah. So I worked out hard. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So then I think you played for the Argonauts from '65 to '70, right?
Yes.
Leo Cahill came in '66, I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
Which I mean, he's legendary in the CFL. I mean, he's and I think he's general manager. I don't know if he was general manager then, but
He was general manager and coach.
Okay.
Yeah, he both. Yes.
so and you played under him for
Yeah.
the duration of your time in Toronto. According to my bang-up research, you played 81 games in the CFL. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but that's what my research tells me anyway.
Is that
The
right?
Yeah, that's what I got out of it. But So you,
I'm feeling it today.
well, I was going to say, is there any like long-lasting effects? Did you get? You were obviously, I think you were injured in one year, right?
I mean, I had my knee torn out.
Yeah.
In '77.
Yep.
And 78. I'm sorry, or 68.
68. Yeah. Well,
I
okay.
had my knee torn out.
Wow.
But I've had 2 knee replacements since.
Okay.
I have to have my rotary cuff tear fixed on this fall.
Okay.
This one replaced.
You're going to be the Bionic Man,
And
Wally.
then possibly a back surgery too.
Oh
so,
my God! Yeah. Certainly, the what I have gathered from just being I've been injured myself as well is the advances in medicine are way ages ahead of what they were back then when you played football. May have prolonged your career, would have not?
I had my ligament hurt in Calgary, third game of the season.
Yep.
In '68, and it wasn't torn out then, but I probably pushed it a little bit and come back
to be a man and
quicker. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
tough guy.
Come back a little bit quicker than what I should have. I probably shouldn't have played that year at all.
Right.
Let it heal properly.
Yep.
Because I was in the cast for 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then we were playing Hamilton.
Yep.
Our arch rivals.
Oh,
in
for
Toronto,
sure.
So, and I got it torn out that game, so that did it for the rest of the year. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was the end of that.
Yeah.
Certainly going back through the years, concussions were certainly a big part of the game, as they were in every professional sport.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I'm going to say, and you probably rang a few bells too.
Well, I don't know, but I know mine was rung a couple of times. So.
You're a defensive lineman, a defensive tackle. Defensive
right.
tackle,
Yeah.
which means you're trying to get their quarterback. That's basically what you're
try to get the quarterback or
knock
stop
over anybody. You got to
stop the ball carriers.
Yep, and to get at them. I mean, and I'm sure there was times probably when you got through without too much resistance, and wham, somebody's going to pay.
Well,
I mean, that's a fact of life. That's the way it goes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So back in those days with the concussions, different than it is today, because you see it in the NHL, you see it all over in professional sports, where they put you right down in like a quiet room, is what they call it. There wasn't that in those days.
No such thing. You
sucked her up, basically.
You sucked it up. You played through the concussions or whatever. That was just.
You might have got knocked out for that game.
I don't think they knew that much about him.
God, no, they wouldn't have at that time.
The first time I really had it rung was we were playing BC, and I broke through the line, made a tackle, but he come up with they had a big fullback.
Okay.
And he was about 240 pounds.
They had a train going the other way.
That's right. Yeah, and his knee come up and it got me right in the chin and face mask and stuff. And so I mean,
did knock you out. I mean,
I get up and I didn't know where I was.
Right.
So, but
did they take you off the field, or you just stayed on?
No.
Staggered around a little bit.
Staggered around, found our bench.
Yep.
Eventually, and
it's the bench is moving and the whole world is moving.
And today I can't remember whether I finished the game or not.
Wow. Yeah, that's something that is certainly was different back then than it is today. I guess you and I, leading up to this interview, we talked a little bit about drugs and steroids that are out there today. I mean, there's testing and stuff going on now. I don't imagine there was too much concern back then. Is that a fair statement?
Well,
not that we had to get in blow whistles and stuff like that.
Steroids, I don't know whether that was,
Yeah.
But bennies were something that was very
something that could get you up for the game, right?
Well,
pump you up and everything.
In all the times I played, I took half of one.
Right.
Because I had a rib cartilage that was torn.
Okay.
And we were playing against Ottawa, so I thought I would take one. And
right.
Just half of one that I took, I thought my heart was going to come through my chest. It scared me.
And you probably
so
saw.
I never ever took them.
No, you probably saw cases where probably other people were doing it on a regular basis.
I've seen some guys where they were, flying.
Yeah, so, and it'll make them aggressive and give them energy and all that stuff.
Yeah, I always wondered what, if I had taken them, what kind of a ball player I would have been. It would have been.
I do say like a grizzly bear or something.
I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. My health, physically, mentally, is not that bad.
No.
There's a lot of guys who. As a matter of fact, my brother called me yesterday. We were talking about another fella from my hometown who's got Alzheimer's.
I was going to say dementia, Alzheimer's, and all that stuff.
Dementia. He told me that Angela Mosca also has dementia. He's in a nursing home. So.
And also you have not just dementia. You have Alzheimer's. You have depression. And
There's all kinds of different.
Yeah, and all kinds of
Yeah.
things that can happen.
Yeah.
And it's whether or not people want to come out and admit it. It's a direct result of that. I mean, of concussions and things like that. I mean, there's scientific fact. We're not sitting on here blowing the whistle on anybody.
No,
I think
no.
I think everybody knows with boxers and any professional sport that you're going to get your head
Most
blows.
professional sports, I mean, anytime you look at a guy's eyes,
Yeah.
you can tell
Yep.
if they've taken something.
Well, yeah, and also you can tell if they've had their bell rung. You watch a hockey game and a guy gets nailed, and he's up and he's, crawling off the ice. Certainly, and we'll go back that many years, and he'll be back on.
Yeah.
And it's certainly, I think we've
Yeah,
come quite a ways
I think
now.
Back in those days, they just didn't. Number one, in the Canadian Football League, you had 10 Americans, I think, when I was playing, and the rest were Canadians, and so
Okay.
Canadians were something. I mean, you kept them on the field, and
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's a draw
They
too.
were hard commodity to come by,
Yep. Yeah, for
know.
sure.
and
That want to go in there and take
so-
that beating night after. Well, I mean, it's one game a week, right? I mean, but still, you're gearing up all week.
Well, sometimes we had.
Well,
two
yeah,
games a
there
week.
is there is one, yeah, because
Yeah.
you do play the odd game during the week, and then
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
usually a game and the one on the weekend as well. And you're
Yeah.
traveling, well, from Ottawa, Toronto to BC. I mean, that's Montreal. I guess Montreal would be far east. You would go. Do you still watch the game today?
Always, yes. I'm
CFL and NFL, or
CFL, yeah.
Okay.
I watch both.
Oh, right,
But,
okay.
CFL, I prefer.
right?
I mean, that's where my heart kind of lies.
For sure, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So,
There was another thing I talked to you on the phone was in '71 you went to the Alouettes. Now, was
Yeah.
that a trade or did you go?
no, I was
free agent?
released by Toronto.
Okay.
And so Montreal, Mr. Quinn was the general manager then. He called me up and
Okay.
invited me to Montreal, and so I signed a contract with them, and I played in '71, and then '72 I retired.
Well, Sam Echeverry, the legendary guy,
Sam
was
was our coach. At
yeah, he
that
was the
time,
coach
yeah.
of the Alouettes, and I talked to you because back in those days, the Alouettes were my team. And mentioned their Sonny Wade was on the
That's
team,
right, yeah.
Peter Dallariva.
Yeah.
And also there was a guy who's they've made a movie about his life, is Terry
Terry
Evanston.
Evanston, that's correct.
Who was involved in a car accident,
Yeah.
which we get into head injuries.
Yeah.
His memory was wiped out, completely wiped
Exactly.
out.
Yes.
And I forget the name of the show, The Man Who Lost Himself or something like that. I mean, now I've read stories on him where he's actually writing down stuff that happens because he doesn't have any recollection of his playing days.
No.
Which
He
is
was a frisky little player.
Yep.
He was a hard nose. Never took any guff for anybody.
no.
Played hard. So,
Yep.
Yeah, for his size.
And so he would have been certainly a guy that I used to like watching and even back in those days. So in '72, you decided to pack her in. What
Yep.
what was that? Was that a
My knee was, it was bothering me a lot, and I just didn't feel that it was worth for me to play.
Were you married at that time, or were
Yes, I was.
Is that Did you meet your wife? She's a hometown girl from this area, is she not?
My second wife.
Your second wife. Okay. You were married once, and
That's right.
Did you meet her through football? Like, was she
No,
involved
no,
in
no,
football?
no, no.
You just happened to meet her. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you stay in touch with any of the? I looked on the Argonaut site, is where they had your name was on there. Do you stay in touch with anybody? Is there an alumni, or do you?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Bill Simons was here last year, and he visited my.
I
he was
remember
over
Bill
at my
Simons.
house.
Yep.
And he was over, so. I get a lot of the alumni news, and so
Yep.
whenever anybody's down this way, we had the golf tournaments when they were playing the exhibition games in Moncton.
Yes.
So some of the guys were there and met them, and played golf with them, and so it was,
Well, that's
talking old times over again.
Oh, for
So,
sure.
yeah.
Okay. Do you have any regrets about playing football and some things that you wish you could have done now that you didn't do then? And obviously, there's nothing we can do to turn back the clock. I think advances in medicine probably could have prolonged your career. But there's nothing you can do about
I think
that.
probably the only regret is that I came back too quick
Yep.
from that knee injury. So,
Right.
And probably shortened my career, and I know I shortened my career over that. So, but
Were there any proud moments that certainly probably some of the championship that you played with in '65? You didn't get to the Grey Cup, I don't think.
no, No.
But I think Eastern Final. I think
We got to Eastern 5 a couple of times. But
Yep.
Yeah. So.
which is still it's still quite an accomplishment. I think you had there was a couple years that. Well, the first years I think were a bit lean years. They weren't quite as successful, but then certainly your later years in Toronto, I think you put together. They had quite a team, from what I can gather.
Yeah. We had a Grey Cup team in 68, 69, 70.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was the years.
You know, only an act of God could stop us, and
unfortunately, and it
that,
has
that,
to be.
That was.
Oh, so Hamilton was one of them.
That was Leo's. You know, that was our downfall when Leo, and that gave Ottawa a lot of incentive to.
Yep.
Do that. So.
Well, the rivalry in the East. You know, you got Ottawa, and Montreal, and Hamilton, and Toronto, all in the same.
Yeah.
And you know
that was the big four at that.
Yeah. And you know, obviously going out to the West, it's certainly they've got rivalries out there. I mean, football's big on the prairies. Saskatchewan, really big. I mean, the Winnipeg.
I think it can be the same thing in the East.
Right.
It'd be nice to have a team down.
I was going to ask you, where do you see the CFL headed? Do you see anything going? Do you think it's going to stay status quo, or do you think there will be an expansion?
No, I really think that in order to make it a real Canadian football league, they need a team in the East here.
Right. So, Moncton or Halifax probably is the logical.
Well, Halifax, Moncton really couldn't support a team.
Not with the facilities they have now. I don't think with you need
population-wise and business-wise, I don't think they could.
Right.
In Halifax, they could. Well, there was a survey done by J.I. Albright years ago.
Right.
Trying to get a team down here, and at that time it wasn't feasible, but I think it is now. I think today, if you had a team in Halifax, I think you get the same kind of support that Regina gets in
well, people will go from here or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, PEI, Newfoundland. I mean, it's certainly because it's only it's a weekend thing.
Yeah.
Right. So you have everybody just flocks to the location, and you have the game on the weekend.
Yeah. I think it'd be, kind of a crown jewel for the CFL to put one in the East Coast.
The only thing is, you would have 9 teams. Is that not? Which that would be. You'd have to almost have there is 8 now. Is there not?
There's 5 out west. There's 4 in the east.
4. Okay, that would make it 10. So you'd have. And for straight when Montreal was out of it, it was kind of strange because Winnipeg was an Eastern team.
Yeah.
Which. And we used to have the 2 teams that were named Rough Rider. People make fun of the CFL, but I mean it certainly was a good league. I mean, back in the day. I mean, it still is strong today.
It's the oldest league in existence.
Exactly.
So,
do you ever think you'll see the NFL in Canada?
No.
There's always been talk of it.
Well, there's talk of it, but I don't think that'll happen.
I don't think I don't think the NFL doesn't want it here.
No, I don't think they really encroach on the CFL.
No.
Really. They're separate. They don't need to come into Canada.
No, because I guess there could be a time you could make the CFL a feeding ground for the, make it a farm team or something for the NFL. But obviously you have to change the rules.
Yeah.
Because you got to play apples and apples. I mean, you got to play with the 4 downs and the different size field.
That's an easy adjustment.
You could do that. You could do it,
Yeah.
certainly. Because a lot of the guys that are playing in the CFL today have played it, American football. I mean,
well, don't forget, CFL expanded into the United States.
Exactly.
So,
right.
When
it didn't last, but I mean, they got I think they got a Grey Cup team out of it in Baltimore, I believe it was.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it was the Stallions.
Yeah, it was.
Stallions, yeah.
Well, I wanted to get you on the show because I knew that there was probably 2 shows here, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here. And it's been great talking to you, and I hope that everybody will hang around because there's a part 2 to the show. And I thank you for coming on, Wally. Okay. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mark.
This has been another episode of the Mark Taylor Show. Please join in again. Thank you very much.